Welcome to our DFnet webinar, Unlock the Full Potential of DFdiscover 2023. I'm Laura Joldersma, I'm Product Manager at DFnet, and we're going to be sharing with you the features and enhancements that we've added in the latest version of DFdiscover. I see some people are still joining us, so we're gonna get started with just a couple of notes to remind you that this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sharing the link to the recording later on this week through email. So if you aren't able to stay for the whole webinar, you can refer to the recording later on, and we'll also be posting the recording on our website as well, along with our past webinars, so you can check them out in the future. As we go through the presentations, you can use the chat to ask any questions that you have. We have time for some Q&A at the end. So if you could just throw those in the chat and we will address them at the end of the presentations. So we have a few different speakers today. Along with myself, we have members of the biometrics team here at DFnet. So Nadine and Kim are both project team leads. Angela is the implementation team lead, and Carolyn is clinical data manager. So we'll be hearing from all of them today about the different features that we've added in DFdiscover 5.6. So just a reminder of all the different products that we provide as part of, from DFnet as part of DFdiscover. DFdiscover server can be either cloud hosted or hosted on-premise by yourself as a CDMS, and we also have an API that connects to several of our additional apps. The main applications that many of you will be familiar with are DFexplore, DFsetup, and DFadmin, but we also have a number of different web and mobile applications for data collection and review. We'll be focusing a lot on DFweb today, which is our browser-based application for EDC. We also have DFcollect, which is a tablet application for online and offline EDC. DFengage is our ePro data collection app, and DFsources is a mobile app for collecting source documentation. So just a reminder that we also have an e-consent system. We won't be talking about it today, but that is also a solution that we offer, an electronic informed consent system. Okay, so let's get into DFdiscover 2023. So this was released back at the end of February. And there's a number of different changes, but the biggest change is in DFweb. So we'll be focusing most of today's webinar on the changes that you'll see in DFweb, including a new look, having reports in DFweb, and we'll also share a case study on a use case of DFweb here at DFnet. We'll also share updates on DFexplore, DFsetup, and DFcollect, as well as some additional changes. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So feel free to add your questions in the chat during the presentations, and we'll address them at the end. And I'm going to hand it over now to Nadine to start us off with the DFweb changes.
Thanks, Laura. Welcome, everybody. I'm Nadine Slabbert, and I'll be outlining some of the new DFweb features today. So users who are familiar with DFweb will be pleasantly surprised by the latest updates. Those of you who have predominantly used DFexplore in order to make use of the extended functionalities are encouraged to re-explore DFweb, as the updates now include many of the DFexplore functions as well. So updates have been made to the overall design, the subject selection options, reports, user profiles and settings, missing pages and overdue visits, as well as missed records, and then also CRF background types. The detail will be shared in the slides that follow. The overall redesign includes a new login and study selection flow, as well as updated navigation. When logging into DFweb for the first time, you'll need to enter the DFdiscover server name in the field provided, or it can be added to the URL. The server name will not have to be re-entered when using the shared URL that contains the server name. And for subsequent logins on the same device, you will not be required to re-enter the server name. DFweb will remember the last access server. If you access multiple servers, all previously specified server names will be available in the drop-down list. Should the server name that you are trying to access not be in your list, you can simply click on the field and type in the selected server name. Once logged in, users with permissions to multiple studies will be prompted to select a study. You can search or sort the list of studies according to the study number or name. You can change studies by selecting a different study from the drop-down at the top of your page. Again, DFweb will remember the study that was accessed last and will automatically open to that study. The app bar at the top of the screen has been updated to display the study name and logo, your username and full name, as well as the server name. The app drop-down menu now includes both the study help and the user guide. A sidebar has been added to the left of your screen with links to the main sections in the app. These include subjects, tasks, queries, and reports. When accessing DFweb on a device with a smaller screen, the sidebar can be collapsed to use less space on the screen. On opening a study, the new subjects page displays a list of available sites, and under each site is a list of the available subjects. The number and percentage of subjects with complete data are shown to the right of the site name. By default, only the site stats for the selected site will be displayed. To load stats for all sites and to see the total number of percentage for subjects with complete data, simply enable auto load site statistics on the settings page. Missing page and overdue visit queries are now supported. Records with these queries are displayed as incomplete records, as opposed to them being displayed as blank records previously. The related edit check functions are also supported. Just keep in mind that you'll require DFdiscover server and API version 5.6 or later to make use of these functionalities. Missed records are now displayed in the subject binder and at the top of the applicable page, as opposed to being displayed as blank records previously. Support for the related edit check functions have also been added. Again, DFdiscover server and API version 5.6 is required for these functionalities. Tasks were available in the previous software release and have received a bit of a facelift in terms of the look and feel. The user profile page is now available from the app menu. Users may update their contact information as well as change their password on this page. The settings previously available from the app menu are now available on the settings page. Users may customize general study settings and view DFweb version and build information on the About tab on this page. DFweb version information, a link to the build history, and the API server information are available on the settings link on the login page. CRF background types are now supported along with the DFprep edit check. Some additional edit check functions that are also supported is DFlevel, that now returns the current validation level, and DFprep auto logout is supported to customize and lock auto logout settings. Permission requirements were updated for tasks so that no permissions beyond what is specified in the task definition are required. Again, DFdiscover server and API version 5.6 or later is required. Thank you very much.
Hi, I am Kim Glorio. I'm also a project team lead at DFnet, and I will be talking about the DFweb report updates. So DFweb reports now allows users to view the standard DFdiscover reports and listings to easily see study data in charts, graphs, and tabular listings. Using the sidebar on the left side of the screen that that Nadine mentioned, you can see on the bottom part of the new bar there, there's the reports and the icon for the reports there. If using a smaller screen, it will sometimes it'll collapse itself. So knowing that that icon is there, if it is in collapsed form, is handy to figure out which one to select. So by default, the reports are listed in alphabetical order. And in the little, there's an orange box where it says grouped view. If you select that, it will group them into categories. And so if you unselect that, it'll go right back to the alphabetical order. There's also a search bar that you can type in a keyword, and any reports meeting that criteria will be shown. After locating the reports that you want, you just click on the report name or anywhere on that row. So here's just a few of the reports that are available. Users will only have access to reports if they're defined by the user role in DFadmin. So some users might not have any available depending on the role and how it's set up. If you've never used reports in DFdiscover, this is a list of some of them. Each one of the reports have different filter options that you can see in that bottom example, the 3 examples that are shown in the bottom, where you can see that grayed out option there. So with this is an example adverse event listing, and so you can search the output by selecting the field of interest and that little search drop down that is in view there, and then specifying a value to search for. So each column can also be sorted in ascending or descending order by clicking the column heading. Each click then reverses the previous order. So if you sort it one way, then click it again, it will sort the opposite way, and you can keep going for as long as you like that. Note at the side of the report there, you can see the gray section with different options that are applicable for that specific report. When you first click on a report dialog comes up like this. The report dialog includes the report title, the filters, sidebar, the report results, and the close button. So depending on which report you select, there are different filters available for you to select. And then when you're ready, you can just select run. Once the slide is, or a report is run, the fun doesn't stop there. There's 2 different reports here that show the different respective option drawers. And the option drawers are those gray boxes mentioned before. I know the text might be small, but the enrollment by site report, you're able to group by site or country, display the total over time, and tweak the orientation to either portrait or landscape. For the queries by site, you're able to view query status by table or chart, categorical age by chart or table, and view resolved queries by chart, and group data by site or country. So I believe the only feature that is available for all of them is the choice to hide the header or hide the chart legend, if that is something you wanted to do. So I'll talk to you guys again later.
Thanks, Kim. I'm Angela Williams, and today I'd like to share a case study of a study we set up for a client in early 2022 using both DFweb and DFexplore. And just to give you a sense of the size and scope of this study, the study takes place in 7 African countries. There are 20 sites, and they all had staggered start times. There's over 400 site staff in these 20 sites, and mostly consisting of a data entry role and a site DM role. There were just a handful of visits in the study: a screening visit, enrollment. There were 3 scheduled follow-up visits and then unscheduled visits that took place over a 6-month duration per participant. They screened just over 3,300 participants and enrolled just over 3,000, or about 150 per site. So setup considerations. This client was used to using CRF backgrounds, so we continued that. We used CRF backgrounds. There were no eCRFs in this study. There were 41 CRFs total. We used also translated background CRFs were in use. 14 of those CRF pages were in the form of questionnaires, and they were available in 12 different languages. Sites, it was flexible, so the sites could use DFweb or DFexplore, or a combination. It was up to the site. It was up to their equipment or their preference. Setup considerations for us, there was internal and external UAT to be considered for both, and training as well. We had to consider training for DFexplore and DFweb for the sites. So some challenges. So this study was set up using when we had version 5.4. At that time, CRF background types and associated edit checks were not supported for translated CRFs in DFweb. So those translated questionnaires could only be entered in DFexplore. Site DMs also could not enter new records in DFweb because this study was using the data entry rule, saving new records to level 1. But there was a site DM role where they were reviewing level 1 records and saving to level 2, but they were also entering new records to level 2. So at the time, 5.4 did not support that. So DMs could only enter new data using DFexplore. Other challenges internally, we had to account for extra time for UAT, also extra time for training materials and sessions to be in both DFexplore and DFweb. Despite that, the study went live on time in summer of 2022. And so feedback, because we didn't receive much feedback from the client or sites about using DFweb or DFexplore during the study, we sent out a survey last month in March of 2023. And just a note here, we didn't ask which software version they used because there were various points in time in the study where they're using 5.4 or 5.51 or 5.6. But because some sites had completed all study visits, some of them only used 5.4. But anyway, the survey went out and we asked several questions. We asked, had they used DFexplore? Had they used DFweb? What was their overall satisfaction with either? Would they recommend DFexplore or DFweb to colleagues? And then we had a general comment area where they could just add free text. And so our responses from site, we had 92% of our respondents had used DFexplore, compared to 57% of respondents had used DFweb. The overall satisfaction rate was a bit higher for DFweb than DFexplore. On a scale of 1 to 5, it was 4.21 for DFweb compared to 4.12 for DFexplore. Also, the rating to recommend to colleagues was a bit higher for DFweb than DFexplore. Again, it was 4.20 for DFweb compared to 4.04 for DFexplore. And some of the general comments I've listed here, the ones in orange, we had some similar comments, and overall it is user-friendly. We didn't know if that was for DFweb or DFexplore, so we assumed both. A couple of the challenges here in blue that were similar was the challenge faced with DFexplore is that only one person can enter the system at a time if it is the same PTID number, which delays work. So problem resolution. With the release of DFweb 5.5 or our version 5.5.1 in October 22, so for DFweb, all validation levels and save modes were now available in that. And also in our release of 5.6 in February 2023, CRF background types and the DFpref edit check were not supported for those translated CRFs. So since this study is still ongoing, there's still time for this study and future studies to increase their use of DFweb and their overall satisfaction, we hope, because it relieved their issue of locked patient binders. It supports the multiple languages used in CRF backgrounds. The data entry rule and the site DM rule can now enter and save data in DFweb. And on a positive for DMs and the site, there's no need to download the software each time there's an upgrade if they're just using DFweb. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Hi, everybody. I'm Carolyn Scott, and we're going to take a little detour off of DFweb and talk about some updates for DFexplore and DFsetup. So in DFexplore, the metadata panel now includes the query creator username, date, and time for studies with multiple queries enabled. And a history button has been added for the queries and reasons, which opens the history for the current field. In the history of change on a page dialog, we've updated it with a field history toggle to allow the user to switch between the field history and the page history. As you can see in this example, the page history is loaded, but the user can toggle between that and the field history by ticking the field history box at the bottom of the page. To show the entire page history once again, simply untick the box. This will save the user time rather than switching between both options in the toolbar. You can also now keep the history of change dialog box open while you tab through the fields of the form to allow you to review changes to the page or individual field without having to open the box each time from the toolbar. In list view, 2 new options have been added for creating cross-record custom listings. These are records that match subjects from any selected plates and records that match subjects from all selected plates. In this example, we're going to look at custom listing fields from the demographics and AE forms. Under customs, you can see records that match subject from any selected plates is chosen. Viewing the data output, you can see there are many subjects, some with data from both plates and some from only one of the plates. Both will be pulled into this output as we're looking for data on any of these 2 plates. When you go back to define the view and change the option to records that match the subject from all selected plates, the output will become much smaller because the subjects must now have data on both plates to be included in the output. And as a reminder, the shortcuts have been created at the bottom right that now allow you to add a new listing, edit the current listing, or to delete a current listing. List view also has a new custom export feature. This allows you to export multiple plates, modules, or custom listings to Excel, CSV, or text. You also have the option to either merge all outputs into one file or save them to a specified folder. Here's an example of the output files in one file versus them all being saved under one individual folder. In reports view, new options are available under the help show command task to display the complete report command. If needed, the command can be customized using an output file where the file extension determines the format of the file. Data and CSV header options are available, as well as PDF page layout and selecting the operating system to be used when running the command. When saving CRFs to PDFs, including or excluding the plate number on the eCRFs is determined by how the setting display plate as is set up under your preferences. The eCRFs will be printed either with the plate number and label or only the label as shown here. Expanding text fields for all or only specified plates is now available for bookmark PDFs and subject packages, and it is now possible to save the output from here as a bookmark PDF. Bookmark PDFs of blank CRFs can be useful when building the study or adding a new CRF, as you can now view the form as it'll look to the user instead of just the eCRF background. You can see the forms at their defined visits, which help visualize the study right from the start. Now let's move on to some DFsetup updates. In global settings, an option has been added to specify how subject headers should be exported as module data. The old behavior, which used DFPID as the subject field name, even if a different name was used in the study, exists primarily for backward compatibility. The new option allows for exporting the subject field name that's currently used on that plate. When coding choice or check fields, you now have the option to further define a secondary label for the code using sublabels. This can be helpful in adding CDIS controlled terminology to a field. The sublabel is stored in the setup definition only. It's not available for reports, nor is it visible in the study database. Edit checks now have a split screen option where you can view the same or 2 different edit checks at once. From the split drop down at the top, select left, right, or top, bottom to open a second panel where the current source file will open in view only mode. Click on the source file to the left to open in the editor panel, And there are two options for opening a file in the viewer panel. You can right click to open it in the viewer panel without changing the file in the editor panel, or you can double click the file to open it in the viewer panel, which moves the file that was there up to the editor panel. In the viewer panel, the name of the source file appears as a label in the top right corner. In the left, a pencil icon appears next to the file open in the editor panel, while a magnifying glass icon appears to the file open in the viewer panel. And the active file will be outlined in blue. The process for creating annotated CRFs in Setup has been updated to support some new options. In place of the field name, the field alias or a custom field property may now be used to annotate data fields by changing the selection under Annotate with Field Property. If a custom field property is selected, an additional option is available to specify whether the field name or alias is used when the custom property for a data field is blank. Note that the plate number will not be included with the plate number for eCRFs unless you tick Include Plate Number in eCRF. And to include bookmarks for each of the plates included in the PDF, check Include Bookmarks. And here is an example of a bookmarked eCRF and a bookmarked CRF background. Thank you.
All right, I'm back. So here is our updates on DFcollect. The new features in DFcollect are only available when connecting to a DFdiscover server in API version 5.6.0 or later. If a version of DFcollect is used that doesn't match the current DFdiscover server version, ensure that the overall or study-specific version strict setting is all minor versions supported located in DFadmin. So the first thing is on the login page, a new option is available to view your password. So if you click the eye icon to show your password, you can click it again to hide it. If you already have login credentials for other DFdiscover tools, the login credentials for DFcollect are the same. And missed records are now displayed in the subject binder. Support for related edit check functions like DF missing record, DF legal, DF lost code, DF lost text are supported. To set a CRF as missed, open the blank CRF, click the three dots in the page header and select Set Page Missed. You'll then be able to choose a reason, category, and enter details. Once selected as missed, the CRF is view only. If a missed CRF needs to be completed or was set to page missed in error, you can click the three dots again in the page header and select Unset Page Missed. And so the top image is the setting page is missed. The second one, the bottom one, is unsetting. Missing page and overdue visit queries are now supported, so records with these queries are now displayed as incomplete in the subject binder. Lookup tables, offline support for lookup tables has been improved. Previously, edit check lookup tables were only available offline if they had been used while online. With DFcollect, lookup tables are now loaded with other study setup information, except for lookup tables with file sizes of over 40 MBs or larger, which cannot be used in DFcollect. Studies with large lookup tables may notice a slightly longer loading time when opening a study online.
Thanks, Kim. So I'm going to talk about a few additional changes and some notes about the upgrade process to finish us out before we head into the Q&A session. So we didn't talk about DFadmin, but we have made one change in there to add a new search field in the studies role and status tabs. So you may know about the wildcard search field in the users tab. So this works similarly, but allows you to search for the study name or the study number. So if you're working with a large number of studies in DFadmin, this lets you filter that list and find the study you want to work with more quickly. The DF info edit check function is an existing function, and we've added 2 new attributes so that you can find the skip patterns and constant value field properties for a specific variable. We've also made a couple of updates, or an update to DFSAS. So when you're running DFSAS in DFexplore, so that's available through the list view in DFexplore, so your current user permissions will now be applied to the export. So for example, if you have hidden fields disabled in your user role, DFSAS will not export those hidden fields in the data set that gets exported. And we have a similar option added in DFSAS when you run it from the command line. So you'll now need to provide authentication if you're using this new option, but again, it'll apply your user permissions to that data export. We added DF Audit DB in the last release in order to provide the new simplified audit trail that Carolyn showed earlier in DFexplore in the last release. And we heard feedback from you that it worked pretty slowly in large studies, so we improved the performance so that runs more quickly now. We've made several updates and enhancements to the API, so many of the new features that you see in DFweb and DFcollect are supported by changes to the API. And of course, as always, we've made some bug fixes and documentation updates. A note about compatibility. So we sort of reference throughout which are the new features that do require DFdiscover server and API to be updated to 5.6, especially for DFweb and DFcollect. But just to be aware that if you're not upgrading your server yet, but you're using the newer DFweb and DFcollect client applications, or if you're upgrading your DFdiscover server, but some of your users aren't updating, say DFexplore, if they're using 5.5 or 5.4, the new features won't be available. So I've added a footnote there to explain which of those features won't be supported if the newer versions aren't used. And as Kim mentioned, you need to make sure that minor version supported is set for those studies in DFadmin. Otherwise, when you try to log into the client applications, if it's not the same version as your server, the connection will be rejected. So you need to make sure you set that setting in DFadmin to allow those connections from older versions of the client applications. Our website provides all the documentation and client app installers. So for the full details on the releases, we didn't get to every single change that we've made in DFdiscover 2023. And so the release notes does detail all of those changes. And so those are available under the documentation tab on the website. We have separated out the release notes for DFdiscover server and desktop apps, and DFweb and DFcollect. So you'll see 3 different release notes PDFs on the page. And that's also where you can find the client app installers under the Windows and Mac OS tabs. For those of you who are self-hosting, you'll find the installers and documentation available in the My Account section of the website under the software releases. And for those of you connecting to DFnet servers, such as Hosted 1 and ZAF, those were updated back on March 25th. So you're using 5.6 now. The upgrade process for our public-facing DFweb and DFWS, as well as DFcollect, is a little bit different than our other applications. DFweb 5.6 is available now at dfweb.dfdiscover.com, as well as the API at dfws.dfdiscover.com. If you are self-hosting, the API is available on the software releases page. For DFweb, please contact software support so we can help you out with installing your self-hosted version of DFweb. DFcollect is released through the Google Play and the Apple App Store, so that's available now. If your current users of DFcollect have auto update enabled on their device, they'll receive the most recent version once it's released. I wanted to say thank you to you, those of you on the call. Our DFdiscover community is really important for helping make our software better. We had 164 work items for the 5.6 release, and about 30% of them were based off your feedback, your bug reports, your feature requests, ideas that you provided to us. So we're really grateful for all of the feedback and all of the everything that our user community contributes to the software. If you're not aware, you can always email help@dfnetresearch.com if you have any bugs to report, any issues you have, any features you're looking for. We love to hear it. We've got a long list to work through, but we love to hear any ideas you have. You may recall that we sent out a user survey last June that was really helpful for informing some of the work we've been doing, especially in DFweb. And we'll be sending out a new survey in the coming months, so keep an eye out for that. And we really appreciate your feedback. Some of the things that are in the works right now, we're adding a way to customize your questionnaire timing in DFEngage, our ePro mobile application. We're adding eCRF translations for DFweb, DFcollect, and DFexplore. We will be adding single sign-on with Microsoft accounts. We'll be adding dashboards in both DFweb and DFcollect. And we're also adding support for eCRF tables and a better responsive display for tablets and phones in DFweb. So we added eCRF tables in the previous release of DFdiscover. And so but currently DFweb does not support those. So we'll be updating how those eCRFs get displayed in DFweb to support that for the next release. And now we will open up the floor to any questions. I know there's been some chatting going on already. I think most of the questions may have been answered, but I'm just going to scroll back to go through those. So Eric asks, when reports list is shown, what report attributes does the search input field work with? Name, description, category, other. And James answered the question further down the chat. The search field searches the report name that's showing on the screen. And if you do have grouped mode enabled, then the group name is also searchable. So that's for the search field in the reports page in DFweb. Nita asked, is there data view as list in DFweb similar to that in DFexplore? And Carolyn, I think you answered that one further down. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll through the questions. Oh, Nadine answered that. So both plate and module listings are available in the reports in DFweb. And I think there was a follow-up question to that about the interaction between the list view reports and the data view in DFexplore. So that's something that we don't yet have in DFweb, but we're looking to add that in a future release so that when you run a listing, you can double click on a specific data field and go directly to that CRF. So that's something we'll be adding to DFweb in a future release. Is it possible to graphically represent custom reports like the AE? Yes, this has been long on our list, and we're looking at ways to provide summary reports that's based off custom data specific to your study. So we're working on that, and we're looking through ways of supporting that. Joe mentioned that from the data science team here at DFnet, we're working on that, and we would like to know exactly what you're looking for. So if you do have specific example reports that you'd like to share with us, that would be really helpful. There's a question about whether the custom report option is also available in DFexplore 5.4.1 to select fields from different forms. And so that the custom report options that Carolyn mentioned, those are only available in 5.6. So you'll need to upgrade to 5.6 to both your client application as well as your DFdiscover server to support that new feature. Peter had a question about how to share query reports generated in DFweb. This isn't yet available in DFweb, but we are working to add that in a future release. So we're planning to add a way to download your queries as an Excel and share that outside. You can copy the URL of the queries view and share that, but it'll show the default list of all the outstanding queries available. So you can, there from the app menu in DFweb, there's an option to copy the URL, and you can share that URL with other people who have access to that study. There's a question about the recording and the slides. We will be sharing the recording shortly after this, later on this week, so you'll receive an email with a link to the recording. Andres has a comment, like the promotion of the reports module to the DFweb platform, and also the switch setting in DFadmin to support minor version differentials between the backend server and the front-end apps like DFweb and DFcollect. Thanks, Andres. That's a great comment. Eric has a question about in DFweb. Does the level continue to default to 1? And 2, can a task definition change this level? So yes, in DFweb 5.5, we added support for levels and modes through using both edit checks and through tasks. So the same default as in DFexplore continues to be the default in DFweb, but if you're using the DFpref edit check to change the user's level, as long as that's supported by their role, it will use the edit check level defined. Or if they're running a task from the task view, it will use the workflow level defined in the task definition. And then finally, a question from Michael about single sign-on to be implemented. We are planning to include that in the next release in 5.7, which will be later this year, is as specific as I want to get right now. So later on this year, we'll be releasing 5.7, and that will include single sign-on, at least in DFweb. And Vicken has a question. You mentioned that folks did UAT for DFexplore and DFweb for a study. Any suggestions on how best to do that? Angela, did you want to address that question?
Sure, yeah. So we literally did testing in both. Like, I don't have any quick tips for that. We did test just every plate like we would in DFexplore. We did the exact same thing in DFweb. So it was double testing, but on a, on some larger level, testing all edit checks, but also internal UAT and external UAT, where some of their our clients tested in solely DFweb and some of their staff tested in just DFexplore. And we did the same internally.
Thanks, Angela. And Robert Yan has a question. If SSO implemented, is there a means to act as a user with different privileges? I assume that means. Samer or JB, did you want to speak to that one?
Yes, Laura, I can answer this. So, the way SSO will be implemented is it is simply going to be used for authenticating the user, but permissions and roles will be validated through DFdiscover server. So single sign-on and the IDPs were not used for defining roles and privileges beyond that.
Great, thanks, Samer. And I think that addresses all of the questions I see in the chat, which makes us perfectly on time. This is well done, everyone. This is a perfect 45-minute webinar. I love to see it. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to hear about the new changes that we've made in DFdiscover 2023. And please let us know if you have any questions. Reach out to help@dfnetresearch.com if you need any software support. Thanks, everyone.